In this video, I'm sharing my fingering and some other ways in which I go about practicing this F major invention number 8 by J.S. Bach. I hope these tips will help you to go from this type of playing to something a little bit more like this. Stick with me for a few practice tips on this popular piece by Mr. B. Well, hi there, it's me, Penny. Welcome back to my home. I'm in my office for this tutorial because I wanted to try a little bit different setup. I don't like having to turn to look at the camera when I'm at the piano and I want to talk. So I have in this video some pre-recorded footage of me practicing and demonstrating some things at the piano, and we're going to cut to that back and forth. That way I can keep looking at you. So the piece on the docket is the very popular invention number 8 in F major. I want to talk a little bit about the main subject of this piece, the main idea, this opening little bum 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 motive. And I have tried to make this a Halloween-ish, I'll show you on the screen here, a Halloween-y version of a basic analysis. And I have, with the help of these bats and the witch and the ghost and the pumpkins, I have put an orange square around every statement of this main idea. And it's actually kind of fun to play those by themselves, back to back. Let's play that for you now. Okay, so you can hear how this little motive bounces around. On the second page there, from measure 21 to about the beginning of measure 26, where we got the blue squares, that's where the motive has been flipped upside down. It's been inverted. So that's something to listen for, certainly when you're playing. So you've heard each of those orange boxes, the main motive. I'm going to show you now how I practice each of those. And I'm just going to practice the first couple of them, not every single one, but the same method applies to each statement of it. You'll hear me breaking apart the unit a lot into just 2 notes or just 3 notes, maybe 4 notes, several different ways, and then gluing them back together. So let's have a look, listen at that. Next, I want to show you some footage of how I practice some of the more tricky scalar passages that involve, again, fingers 3 and 4, whether we like it or not. And these are just places that I know I personally have some trouble when I'm playing this, and that I've heard students have trouble. It's always the same spots that give us grief, right? So those would be the left hand measure 3. So you're going to hear how I practice that spot. Again, breaking it up into little chunks. And I do a lot of forte staccato practicing in these clips. And now I'm going to show you another difficult spot, not quite as difficult as that last one, but this is the right hand part, measure 15, where we have those wide intervals of a sixth and a seventh alternating. So let's see how we practice that. And in that last clip, you saw me holding down that fifth finger while I work the thumb and the index finger number 2 of that passage. That's another great way. When you have a passage that involves wide leaps, not only do you want to rotate a lot and keep that constant movement in your arm and hands, nothing goes still, but also you want to practice slowly holding either the top note while you work on the bottom stuff or holding the bottom note as you work on the top stuff. And the passage, similar to what we just heard, but in the left hand, is what we're going to look at next. This is left hand measure 24 and 25, where we have the same kind of thing, these wide intervals. And here I'm showing practice holding the fifth finger down as you work the top fingers. That helps with your span, your finger strength, and you can do the reverse too, holding the thumb down and then working the bottom part. So let's see that real quick. finally, the passage that seems to trip most of us up 9 times out of 10, and that is hands together, although it's largely the left hand that's the culprit, measure 31 to the end. And I think the issue here is with togetherness of hands. So let's have a listen to how I practice that passage. Now it occurred to me that it would probably be helpful to demonstrate poor playing. Otherwise, what do we have to go by, right? So I am going to play you my sloppy version of this F major invention. I'm trying to have wobbly, unfocused, uneven articulation and hands that are not completely together, and some shaky pulse throughout. So let's hear what a poor performance sounds like. Let's take a quick little break and look at some driving footage from a few weeks ago when the leaves were just starting to turn out by Pelham, which is really not far from my home, and it's absolutely lovely out there. Very much farming country and beautiful trees, and I'll have to take a trip there again soon to see the colors. But you can see here nice winding little country road, some cute little houses, nice blue sky. This was a couple weeks ago, as I say, so the leaves have changed drastically in color since then. And we are starting to get quite cold temperatures here. I've had to turn the heat on, and I think we've got frost warnings in effect, and you know what's around the corner. But oh my, the leaves are so pretty here in Canada right now. I cannot tell you. Just so beautiful. We'll have to get some more footage. All right, so we're back at our lesson here. Fingering in general is not something that I've talked about, and it's a big topic. And you know, at the end of the day, the best piece of advice to pass along about fingering is that you have to use what feels good to you. I mean, when people go to get fitted for clothes, how many different types of measurements are there? We're all different shapes and sizes. So are our hands. And so it's really important to find the fingering that best fits your hand. I don't think you should believe that there are rules or that there's only one way. Certainly my hands, I'll just hold them up here. I do not have big hands. I have fat fingers, thick fingers, and the pads on the ends are pretty fleshy. And I think my hand is fairly wide. I remember being told in university. Penny, you have guy hands. But anyhow, I have a pretty wide palm, and my fingers are thick, but they're short and stubby, and rounded, and they're really not very long. And actually, I think that my personal hands are quite well suited to playing Bach. If I had a passion for playing the music of Franz Liszt, Sergei Rachmaninoff, and actually I do love to play Rachmaninoff, though it's been a while. But this is music that, with these hands, good luck. So if you have very long, slender fingers, then I think you're well equipped, literally, to play some of the more pianistic romantic repertoire. I suppose if any of you have a hand shape similar to mine and are working on this piece, then this may be your lucky day. Perhaps this fingering will not work for you, but I do have a couple of general things that I like to think about. My teacher at Manhattan School of Music, who I always like to think about, she was such a wonderful pianist and a great friend, dear lady. Constance Keene was her name, and she always used to say, she had this raspy voice, you just scrape away those fingerings, scrape them away, So even in my Henley edition, which is Urtext, the notes are Urtext. However, there are some fingerings that have been put in by the editor, and I ignore them. And as I've said before, one of the volumes I have of the Well-Tempered Clavier, I think it's volume 2, that one has a plethora of fingerings marked in, and I just find they're just like they block my mind. I actually have to like scratch them, literally scrape them away. So anyway, you gotta find what feels comfy to you. Now, I usually do not write in my fingering into my music. Sometimes certain passages I definitely will, especially in fugues where there are many voices and sometimes you have to do finger substitutions. I do mark them in, but I'm not one of these pianists like, who was it, Gina Bachauer, wonderful pianist, and my teacher knew her actually. Gina Bachauer apparently used to write in every single fingering, and so the sheet music just had all these numbers, every single note, right and left hand, and that was for music that has far more notes in it than Bach's music. So I can't imagine that. That's just overkill for me. Fingering to me is at least by now, has become quite innate and natural, and so it's hard to explain how to do that, but I'm trying. And I went through this invention slowly with my pencil in my hand, writing in the fingerings that I use. And I put it neatly into a little document, and I'm going to show that on the screen here. So this is my fingering for this F major invention. You can see RH is right hand. Those are the red numbers on the top of the staff, and then we got LH, left hand, the purple numbers in the bottom of each staff, and then there's the second half of the page there on another picture. Every single time I play this piece will not be absolutely rigidly adhering to this fingering. The fingers sometimes kind of will make a last minute kind of a change on their own. It's just sometimes this happens. It's like when you go for a walk and you may walk the same route around the block every day, but it's not necessarily the same number of steps. It's just you don't always take the same number of breaths or blinks with your eye every day, but it's approximate. So this is an approximation of my fingering. And what I want to point out here, and I'm assuming that you're familiar with the finger numbers, we got your thumb, finger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are the numbers here on the page. And one of the things that I try to maintain a lot of is to use fresh fingers. That was a phrase that one of my teachers used, I think at Eastman. Fresh fingers. And this is when you have repetitive passages. And we do have a number of those, such as the left hand measure 6. So we've got a little motive repeated 3 times in this bar. And the left hand has 4, 1, 2, 1. And then I use a fresh finger, even though it's the same notes. I use 3, 1, 2, 1. I got a little green circle around the 3. And then for the third repetition, I go back to 4, 1, 2, 1. So the F has been given a fresh finger. First it's played with finger 4, then with finger 3, and then back with finger 4. The thing, and there's other instances here too. Of course, I'm not going to go through every one of them, but the idea of fresh fingers within repeated passages is that it allows, I think anyway, it helps allow for constant movement of the hand and arm. That's what you want in everything you play. Everything should be moving at all times. If you're sitting on a whole note, or you don't let everything go still and motionless, you want to have a little bit of movement at all times. Also, in this type of running passage work, we have these fast 16th notes. You want to have curved fingers in order to get good, clear articulation. The more curved your hand is, more rounded your hand shape is, like you're holding a baseball, right, or a small grapefruit kind of thing. The more you've got that curved shape, the more clearly you'll be able to articulate, and the music will sound nicely and focused and not blurry. And so by changing your fingers within repetitive passages, it allows for the hand to stay relaxed. If I'm doing 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, you don't have to change the finger, make it fresh on every single repetition. But depending on how many of them there are and how wide apart the notes are, and especially what comes next, that will all influence where you add a fresh finger. And again, it will be determined largely by your hands, what Mother Nature has given you to work with. But you really want to have things moving at all times. In all of this passage work, 2, 4, 3, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, just little bits of movement from the arm and the hand. That keeps the whole body loose and relaxed. That's what you want. We've talked about fresh fingers, keeping the hand and arm constantly in motion, and with a good curved fingers for these passage work sections. Another thing that I like to do in a piece like this, where I have fast running passage work, is to use alternate fingers, especially when 4 and 3 are involved. So if we look at these fingerings here, for instance, there's all sorts of places where the notes are moving by step, and yet I'm using finger 1, 4 for notes that are a step apart. I think common sense is to use fingers that are next to each other for notes that are also adjacent. But again, you want to maintain roundness and curvedness of the fingers and hand. And so places like the right hand measure 8. I've got 3, 4, 3, 2, and then in that beat 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. That personally feels good. And it doesn't mean that because I'm using my thumb and then the fourth finger, that these two fingers are like up in the air and like awkward. No, they're all still basically in this shape, like shadow puppets. So it's just being comfortable letting fingers that are not in use still be in that area and not like sticking up here. The places that I often hear students kind of mess up a little bit in this piece are places where the left hand is playing with fingers 4 and 3. So, and you cannot avoid that completely, but by using alternate fingers, it gives you more control, and you can avoid some of those awkward movement by finger 3 and 4 in a row. For instance, the left hand measure 32. I've got 2, 1. This is a difficult spot for people, but I like to use 2, 1 through 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. By having 4 on the beginnings of those 2 beats, it's positioning your hand for what's to come. And that's the other thing about fingering. You want to look and see what comes up next in the music after the particular passage that you're looking to finger. And does it go down? Does it go up? By how much? And that will influence your choice of fingers too. Well, that completes everything I have for you today. I hope it was helpful. I'm trying to learn how to improve tutorials and trying to understand who you are, what your needs are, you know. I think perhaps many of you are self-taught and trying to learn from home via tutorials, and so feel free to leave a comment, you know, if there's something that I can better address or that would be helpful to you. Or if anything was helpful to you, let me know. Comments are appreciated and very useful as well. Certainly it's good for the channel, but it's helpful for me so I can make better videos. I know that my performance videos always do infinitely better than whenever I open my mouth. But I think it's important to share ideas and how to practice. So I am trying to improve that skill. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I got my little swallows from Capistrano here. These were my grandparents. I thought they were so cute. And we'll wish you well. Happy practicing. Stay safe. And we'll see you again soon for some more performances and teaching tips of Bach's music. Thanks for watching and take care. Bye-bye.